Elon Musk has officially made history as the world's first trillionaire. After the monstrous initial public offer of SpaceX, Musk's net worth now reaches $1.1 trillion. And love him or hate him, you have to admit that that is a wild achievement. But how did he get there? How did this balding nerd from a nowhere country build the biggest business empire in history? We're going to look at some of his personal history, the attributes he has that you can apply to your business, and how you, yes, you, helped him become the world's first trillionaire. And this isn't going to be a deep dive into every piece of the individual businesses, but rather the attitudes and skills that Elon learned and used to achieve this historic title. Elon Reeve Musk was born June 28, 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa to parents Errol and May Musk. Being that both his parents were wealthy, it allowed Elon to grow up surrounded by not only intelligent people, but also very eccentric people. His grandfather in particular, Joshua Hadelman, a pilot and adventurer, had a very significant impact on him. Although Hadelman was killed in a plane crash when Elon was a toddler, hearing stories about his time as a pilot and explorer from his grandmother was supposedly what built Musk's own desire for adventure and exploration. Pair this with his love of books like The Lord of the Rings and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it all added up to his adventurous spirit, and he soon developed a love for engineering and computing. A love so intense that at age 10, he started teaching himself how to program, and by 12, he had sold his first video game for $500. Which early on sets up one of the characteristics that makes him such a successful businessman. The guy is always learning and applying what he learns to his life and business. With such an intense desire to learn, you would think he would do well in school, but that's not really the case. Pretty much everyone knows that Musk is autistic, and like a lot of autistic people with insane special interests, he does poorly in school. In fact, his Wikipedia page found it necessary to point out the fact that he got a 61 on his Afrikaans language class and a B on his senior math certificate. And actually, a lot of the information I was able to find about his childhood takes several digs at him and his family and is really hard to find what is true and what is false. This is due in part to contradictory statements from both Elon and his extended family over the decades that they've been in the spotlight. Some accounts go as far to claim that while he may have gotten his sense of adventure from his grandfather, he also got a bunch of anti-government and anti-Semitism from him. I don't know why they view anti-government things as bad, but whatever. And I'm not going to get into whether or not he's anti-Semitic, because there's a lot of arguing on both sides, and that's not what this video is about. But like I said, from what I've found, most of what he knew about his grandfather came from stories, so unless his grandma was telling young Elon how much Grandpa hated the Jews, I'm not really sure how true it actually is. Anyway, eventually his parents would get divorced, and Elon originally chose to stay with his father in South Africa, but once he reached 18, he applied for his Canadian passport with the hopes of eventually making it to the United States. He was able to get his Canadian passport because he had dual citizenship from his mother, who was part Canadian. After arriving in Canada, he worked several odd jobs and enrolled in a local college for 2 years before transferring to the University of Pennsylvania. While Musk was in college, he received 2 internships in Silicon Valley, one at an energy research startup and another at a video game startup, Rocket Science Games, before heading off with his brother to found an internet software company called Zip2. Zip2 was an online software that created city guides for newspapers. Think like the tourist guidebooks you see in major cities trying to sell tours. After building Zip2 for several years, it was eventually sold to a company called Compaq for $307 million in cash, which Elon received $22 million of, and then he used for his next venture. And his time at Zip2 highlights another aspect of his success. He is always working. He stated several times that while working on Zip2, the website would be handling traffic during the day and he would be up coding at night. He was so dedicated to spending so much of his time working that he and his brother literally lived in their office, sleeping on the couch because traveling back and forth between work and home wasted too much time. And this to me puts him far above what most people think about when they picture success. Okay, so many people have grown up with the idea of school is only a time for you to gain information, and then after school is when you go to work. And that means that so many people waste a ton of valuable time in college. I personally wouldn't hire an editor who spent 4 years in college and wasn't editing on the side, because to me, you've wasted 4 years of honing your craft outside of class and only did the bare minimum. Thanks to the buyout of Zip2, Elon was able to take that money and found X.com in 1999. It was an online banking service with over 200,000 customers in the first few months of operation. X.com was right on the cutting edge of figuring out how to make payments online and was in a fierce competition with another company called Confinity. After some time competing against each other, the two companies eventually merged and the new company would become known as PayPal. Now, the story of PayPal could be a whole different video all on its own, but essentially, after the merger, Elon was made CEO and immediately pushed the idea of switching the operating system from Linux to Windows, which, if you don't know much about computing, that may not sound like a big deal, but computing is very different than it was back then, and this ask is nearly impossible. Think of it like trying to switch your car from running on gasoline to running on water. You can't just switch things over and hope it works. It was a nearly impossible ask, but Elon wouldn't budge on his demands. Therefore, while he was on vacation, he was fired as CEO. Now, normally you would think that after being removed from the position, he would have left, but he didn't. Elon stayed with the company because of something he has that overrides ego and is perhaps the biggest factor in his success: belief in the vision. He believed that PayPal could be an absolute game changer in the tech world, and no matter what personal feelings he had about being ousted as CEO, that belief in the product was greater than those personal feelings. And it paid off. After an IPO of $70 million, online reseller eBay offered to purchase over $1 billion in stock in PayPal. Elon and the other founders took this as their opportunity to leave the company, and this lined his pockets with $175 million, which he took to set off on his next and biggest adventure yet: colonizing Mars. And this is where that belief in the vision of a company kicks into overdrive, because every business decision that Musk makes after leaving PayPal is focused on this one idea. All right, so if we want to colonize Mars, what's the first thing we need to do? We got to get there. Well, how do we do that? Rockets. In 2002, with $100 million of his personal wealth, Musk founded SpaceX with the idea of building affordable rockets for cargo transportation in space and eventually Mars. After 4 years of engineering and development, SpaceX had its first attempted launch of the Falcon 1 rocket in 2006, and it did not go well. In fact, the first 3 launches ended in failure and almost bankrupted the entire company before it even got off the ground. Pun very much intended. These failures highlighted another trait that makes Elon a successful businessman and engineer. He learns from his mistakes, and he does not give up. After every failed launch, Elon and his team underwent excessive analysis of the problems within the previous rocket in an attempt to refine their process and understand what went wrong to fix it next. And after several years and multiple failed launches, the first successful launch of the Falcon 1 occurred on September 28, 2008. After this initial success, SpaceX was awarded contracts from NASA to use the later version, the Falcon 9, to send resupply missions to the International Space Station. This was all well and good and made the company a ton of money. And they could have just coasted on that contract money, but that's not how Elon gets down. And this shows the next part of his business genius: being on the cutting edge of innovation and aiming for targets nobody else can see. When SpaceX was developing the Falcon 1 and Falcon 9 rockets, it was widely accepted that rockets are a single-use only product. They launch into the air, deliver the payload, and then crash into the ocean. But Musk and his team decided to try something thought to be impossible: a reusable rocket that lands itself. And just like previous rockets, there's quite a few crashes. But that's to be expected, right? You're trying to do something never before done, and it's basically science fiction. You're gonna have some problems. But the team eventually figures it out and finally has successful landings of their rocket boosters, which lead to the eventual launch of the Falcon Heavy, a rocket designed to carry immense payloads into orbit. And this is the rocket that Elon used to launch his own personal Tesla Roadster into orbit. And as of right now, the Falcon Heavy rocket is intended to be replaced with the newest rocket called Starship, which has seen several successful launches and landings, and is the rocket intended to eventually carry cargo and people to Mars. So Elon has figured out his rocket company, and it's working on how to get to Mars, but just getting to Mars is only part of the goal for eventual colonization. How are we supposed to communicate back and forth between the Earth and Mars? Elon and SpaceX have a solution for that: Starlink. Very basic, down and dirty, Starlink is a cluster of satellites in low Earth orbit that deliver internet via a mobile or stationary satellite dish. They are actually really incredible. My cousin has one, and we've taken it to our elk hunting camp, and he used it to watch the World Series in our tent. The ultimate goal for Starlink is to put another satellite cluster in low orbit over Mars in order to deliver internet the same way it does to Earth. And it highlights our next lesson from Musk: using short-term success for long-term goals. Musk wants to put satellite internet over all of Mars, but there aren't any people on Mars yet. All the people are on Earth, so I guess we need to sell it to Earth people first. And not only does using the short-term success help the company gain money, it also allows them to test the product before it reaches its eventual goal. If you hike to one of the most remote places on Earth and can still get internet via Starlink, that's a pretty good test of how the product will eventually work on its intended planet. Alright, so now we know how to get there and how to communicate, but how do we get around? Enter what is probably the most commercially successful of his businesses, Tesla. And yes, I know that SpaceX now has a higher valuation thanks to contracts and investments. I'm talking about Tesla as a company that makes consumables sold on a regular market. I can't go buy a Falcon 1 rocket at the dealership. Although not founded by Elon, he was among the first major investors in Tesla back in 2004 and became the majority shareholder and chairman of the board of directors. After some more internal conflicts that were increased due to the 2008 financial crisis, Musk eventually became CEO and product architect. And under his leadership, Tesla began designing and producing all kinds of different models: the Model S, the Model X, the Model 3, the Model Y, and eventually the Cybertruck. And just like all the other companies, Elon has pushed for cutting-edge technology like self-driving, extremely strong glass, and sensor safety features, and of course, being all electric. And being an all-electric car, you have to have a way to power them, so he invested in Solar City, a solar energy company that eventually merged with Tesla to become Tesla Energy, which not only provides solar energy for personal use, but also large-scale energy production factories. Tesla again highlights his ability to think long-term, because transporting fuel for a regular gas-powered car to Mars would be insanely expensive. With Tesla cars and Tesla Energy, all you have to do is set up the power generators on Mars and plug the cars in order to power them on. They're also heavy as shit, which I assume will also help in Mars's lower gravity, and I'm sure they're working on a fully sealed, space-worthy version. Elon also founded the Boring Company, which is focused on developing underground infrastructure like high-speed underground highways, one of which was the Las Vegas Tunnel. And then in 2022, Elon purchased the social media platform Twitter, changing it to X.com, coming back full circle to his early days in business. Now, every single one of these companies has had its own controversy, usually centered around Musk himself and his own political or philosophical views. And this brings me to one of the most fascinating skills that Elon Musk possesses: how he markets his businesses. Have you ever seen an advertisement for Tesla? No, you haven't, because they don't have ads, and frankly, they don't need them. How many Cybertrucks do you think were ordered after the infamous broken window mishap at the launch? Yeah, that's a good guess. 200,000. To put that in perspective, that's roughly how many Honda Civics are sold in the United States in a year, and Tesla received that many orders in 5 days. That is a level of marketing that few companies have been able to achieve with enormous marketing budgets. So how does he do it? From the very beginning, Musk has been on the cutting edge of technological advancement, and that is something that is always going to catch attention, especially if the technology works. So on one side, the technology itself serves to sell itself, and on the other hand is something absolutely insane: meme marketing. Everyone knows Elon Musk is a meme generator. From his appearances on Joe Rogan smoking a blunt, to his reactions and smiles in interviews and red carpets, and the failed introduction of the Cybertruck. And even if the meme has nothing to do with who he is, his ability to generate buzz is a skill that not many people possess. Think about this. How long does Musk go without being in the news or going viral for a tweet? A few days? A week tops? It doesn't matter whether the reactions are good or bad. Elon is constantly in the cultural, business, and political zeitgeist, which in turn means that his businesses, his ideas, both political and philosophical, are always getting attention and influencing people in every sphere of life. And this is where Elon Musk differs from most other billionaire businessmen. He doesn't hide from the spotlight, he seeks it out. Most billionaires quietly sell their products to other companies or mass market them through regular marketing. But Elon and his personal image are the marketing, and he goes directly to the people buying his products. That's why he makes podcast appearances and does interviews. He wants to be on your mind because that's how he can have cultural influence and sell his products. It's honestly the same way that YouTubers and influencers make money, and it's a well-known saying in marketing. If you can capture attention, you can sell something. Tesla doesn't sell cars because they put them in movies or magazines. They do it by putting features that catch people's attention and create viral moments like the dancing cars and the previously mentioned broken windshield incident. And this is where you come in. Obviously, if you have purchased or invested in any of his companies, buying Starlink, buying a Tesla, having a subscription to X, purchasing stock, you've helped Elon become a trillionaire. But even if you haven't directly given him money, there's a chance you've helped him. If you've shared a meme or liked a video that helped Tesla and Musk go viral, you've helped push his products to more people. Remember how I said that one of his greatest skills as a businessman is his dedication to the vision, to the idea of a business? Well, if you've gotten on board with that vision, with the idea of his business, you've helped him become what he is. Businesses are ultimately just ideas that create products people pay for. If they can get you on board with the idea, and especially if they can get you to spread the idea, you become part of the marketing. You can hate Elon Musk all you want, but if you believe that we need to stop using fossil fuels and start using electric cars, you've fed into his wealth and fortune, whether you like it or not. If you've spread the idea to people around you that we need electric cars and they spread it around to their friends, it eventually becomes this cultural idea that fossil fuels are bad and we need electric cars. And who's providing the best electric cars? Elon Musk. And all these people who have nothing but hate toward Elon Musk for his political ideology are exactly the people that built him into what he is. It's just like people who say that Jeff Bezos is an evil billionaire that shouldn't have that money. Meanwhile, they buy fucking everything on Amazon. If you're someone who claims to hate billionaires, get some perspective and actually commit yourself to your ideas. Stop buying their products and stop believing in their visions. But most people won't do that because deep down, they actually believe in a lot of the same things that these billionaires believe in. I don't like Jeff Bezos because of his business practices, so I don't use Amazon. Doesn't mean I can't learn from him and how he became successful. I disagree with Elon Musk on almost everything. I think we should be spending resources on preserving the Earth. I don't have any desire to live underground on another planet, and honestly, I think electric cars are kind of gay. Do I know that they can go fast? Yeah, but frankly, when I hear them, I feel my testosterone drop. When I hear a screaming V8, it does something to my brain that makes me want to kill an animal with my bare hands and cook its flesh for dinner. But my opinions about Elon and his businesses don't matter because he has such a hold on the public opinion that his businesses will only continue to grow. And that's his true genius. Not only seeing the cultural attitude towards products and pushing them further in order to attain his goal of colonizing Mars, but helping to influence those attitudes to his benefit. In fact, he was so good at pushing these ideas that long before his political turn, he was hailed as the golden boy of sustainable energy. There are states where buying an electric vehicle lowers your tax bill. That's how much the ideas he's pushing have influenced our culture and politics. And his businesses will continue to grow as long as people buy into these ideas, and I don't really see that changing anytime soon. And that is how Elon Musk stands on business, becoming the first trillionaire in history by being dedicated to his vision, creating multiple businesses all in service of achieving that vision, and using the social climate around him to push his businesses further into the cultural zeitgeist. And whether you like him or not, there's certainly a lot to be learned from how he did it. And if you're one of these people bitching that there shouldn't be such a thing as a trillionaire or a billionaire, maybe you should be honest with yourself and accept the fact that you want to be one of those people. You're just mad that you aren't. So maybe take a look at how Elon became what he is and take those lessons to heart. And maybe one of these days you can create something yourself and become just as successful. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more analysis into businesses and how they grow and impact society, please consider subscribing. And you can watch this video right now about how bottled water became so popular and even changed human biology. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one. The end.